Yesterday we had our first War Table stream for Marvel Avengers. It was 13 minutes that it was on for, and it actually dropped a lot of information in regards to various different aspects of the game. That could be about builds, about gear, about costumes, and how co-op actually works. Now, the most interesting part for me, because I do see myself primarily as a guide creator, was in regards to the gear and the various different affixes that are available. Now, dotted throughout the video there was various screens that popped up very quickly showing off the gear, so I went through that footage. I've managed to capture everything, and I've also got some screenshots that are relevant to how gear will potentially work, for example how many slots you'll have and the rarities and so on. So let's jump in and let's check out what we were able to find out from the stream. We'll start off then with the basics of gear. So on the left hand side you can see it says gear loadout. Now there's 4 different icons there, and throughout the video you can actually see what those icons would relate to. The top one is related to melee gear, the second one down, that's the one highlighted at the moment, that is ranged gear. The third icon, there's no characters that actually have that equipped during the live stream, so I'm not quite sure what that relates to. The fourth one is for something called heroic gear, that seems to be tied in with heroic abilities characters can use, and we've got examples of heroic gear later on in the video. You can see you've also got major artifacts as well. There's only one of them by the looks of it, and just below it is hidden by the grey tooltip, but you can see it states minor artifacts, and there looks to be 2 available slots there as well. One of them you can tell is actually locked out, so I imagine as you're playing the game you will unlock that. So in total that looks like there's 7 different gear slots that are available. Now what about the rarities of the gear, what's available there? So far then it looks like there's 5 different rarities available in the game. There very well could be more coming at a later date. You could perhaps get unique gear, maybe we'll get set pieces as well, but for now it's 5 different rarities. The first one you actually seen a moment ago, that was a common white gear, didn't have any affixes attached to it. Imagine this as a gear your character potentially starts off with. We've then got the uncommon gear, you can see it on screen at the moment. This particular one, green colour, that's usual, they're using the normal colouring system you see for gear, but with this particular one you're getting 1 affix added to it. For the blue gear, which is classed as rare, you're getting 2 affixes. We then have epic gear up next, this is purple and that has 3 affixes. And then finally we have legendary gear, that's got 3 affixes as well. I'm not quite sure what the difference between epic and legendary seems to be. If you can notice any large difference, then do let me know in the comments below. You'll notice with each of the gear as well, it looks like you can actually upgrade the gear. You've got your boost button down at the bottom, and it looks like if you do that, I imagine it will probably increase the actual stats of that particular gear piece and make it more effective. But that's all the different rarities. Let's have a look at the affixes that are actually available now. We managed to get a fair amount of different perks and affixes then from the gameplay footage. So if you look at this gear anyway, name wise it's adept buff cartridges. Now the name seems to actually be related to the perks that are available, so at a quick glance you can see if a gear piece is one that potentially you will be looking for. But if we run through the different perks, the first one is adept buff, and I really like the idea of this. You have a 20% chance for weak point attacks to grant a damage buff, so this is rewarding skillful gameplay. If you're able to hit an enemy in the weak spot, then you'll potentially be getting more damage on the back of it. You then have electric ACP rounds. This comes up quite a lot, this style of perk. So with this, ranged attacks with full auto shot deal shock damage, so you can add different damage types to attacks, and later on in the video we'll look at Iron Man adding gamma to his lasers, which is pretty amazing. And then finally for this particular item you have mighty boons. So this one here, 25% increased critical hit chance for power attacks, and that's just a type of attack that you are able to do there. We then have Hulk up next, and it's just the 1 affix on this gear piece. This is called Gamma Sector. Now with this, light combo finishers deal gamma damage, emitting an aggressive burst of gamma radiation. It changes the colour of attacks, and again we will see that later on in the video. I will mention that during the live stream the developers mentioned that you can do combos. If you do a combination of light and heavy attacks you can actually get different results, so that's really interesting. We then have two new effects in this gear piece. The Adept Spark is one we've already seen, but we've got Plasma Repulsor, so like Black Widow we looked at earlier on, this will be changing the damage type. So with this standard repulsor attacks deal plasma damage instead, and then you've got Heavyweight Breaker, so this particular one gives you increased damage from power attacks. This next gear piece has three new effects, all pretty interesting. The first is Lightweight Spark. With this, you've got a chance for a light combo finisher to grant a heroic charge burst for all heroics. Shock Injector is up next, so your light combo finishers trigger a burst of shock damage, and then Aerial Impulse. This has got 100% increased stun damage from mid-air melee attacks. With this legendary gear we've got one new effect. It seems the bottom effects in most instances is either increasing the damage or crit chance on particular attacks, so I won't always point them out, but the middle effects here is Pim Oscillator, so laser attacks now deal pin damage, seamlessly blending Stark Tech weapons with Pim technology. Now gameplay footage wise, you can see here that when you actually use this it will shrink enemies, so that's really interesting. I'm thinking sometimes it could be a bit of a pain though if you're about to target a weak spot and the enemy shrinks, but it is still a really nice gameplay mechanic. Two new effects then with this gear piece. The first one is Proficient Protection. So with this you get a chance at ranged power attacks, grant a defense buff, and it requires ranged power attacks ability. So with this it's interesting in the respect that if you may be building a tanky style character, whether or not characters can taunt I'm not quite sure, but if you're building a tanky style character that'll be at the front of the fight all the time, imagine that would be your Cap or your Hulk, then you can get effects to make them more durable. We then have some more gameplay on the back of Gamma Chamber. So this one here, laser attacks deal gamma damage, incorporating Dr. Banner's redacted research on gamma bombs, and you can see when Iron Man does the spin move, which is actually from Iron Man 2, so nice little nod there, it changed the beams to the green colour, so again that's really pretty interesting. And we'll need to hopefully find out in a later video what the difference is when you use your gamma and your shock, if it maybe creates a dot or a stun or so on. This next piece of gear seems pretty nice. So it starts off with Faultless Pulse. You have a chance for melee critical attacks to trigger a stun damage explosion, and then you've also got Cryo Injector where light combo finishers will trigger a burst of cryo damage. Will that freeze enemies? We just need to wait and see. We have quite a few new effects here when we look at Miss Marvel, so it certainly looks like the effects will greatly differ based on the hero. Now starting off it's Aerial Quake, 100% increased stun damage from mid-air melee attacks. Then you've got Sure Shot Spark, it's hard to say that one. You've got a chance of defeating enemies with melee attacks, you grant a heroic charge burst for all heroics. And then finally, this is interesting, you've got the ultimate heroic charge. The ultimate abilities are one you can fire off from the trailer. It looks like Iron Man can potentially call in the Hulk Buster, and I think for Miss Marvel you may be getting Biggin, and for Thor you get the Odin Force. You can do a large explosion of it, which looks amazing. But with this one here, it's ultimate heroic charge and increases the charge rate of heroic ultimate abilities. In this instance it's by 16.2%. For this next gear piece then, it's slightly different in that the third effects that's available so far when we've looked at gear pieces has all been offensive orientated. This is defensive orientated. It's called Rampage Protection, so if you rapidly defeat 5 enemies then it will grant you a defensive buff. We finish up looking at the effects then with Thor. So the new one he's got here is the middle one. It's Experimental Pim Particle Emitter, and with this pinned enemies take pin damage. Whether or not they'll shrink I'm not quite sure, but the pinned move will be the one from the AD trailer where he throws out Mjolnir and he's able to hold the enemy next to the Jeep, I believe it is. This next gear piece looks like it's going to be nice if you want a jacked up electricity for. The middle effect says Electric Wraps. With this, ranged power attacks will deal bonus shock damage on top of any innate shock damage it would normally already do. The final effects we look at here then is Electrified Case, and this one with pinned enemies, we've already talked how that mechanic works. They'll take additional shock damage over time. So that's a good selection of effects that we were able to see in the footage. Now, one thing I've not mentioned yet, but you'll see on the gear tooltip, in this instance it says Resolve and then it says the number 6 next to it. Now, over various different tooltips, looks like there's different effects available here, but I can't really see where it would affect your character and what it would affect, because up the top, you've got your melee rating, your defense rating, your ranged, and your heroic. There's no mention of resolve. The other names that did appear on the other tooltips were resilience, might, proficiency, precision, intensity, and also valor as well. So feel free to speculate in the comments below what those actual names could mean, what they could tie into. But let's now have a look at the gear vendors and the faction side of things. On board your helicarrier then, you actually upgrade as the game goes on. You can get various different gear vendors and also faction vendors as well. Now the first one we'll look at is a gear vendor. We've actually got a tutorial here which breaks it down. So it's stating, gear vendors offer gear of various rarities in exchange for fragments, upgrade modules and other rare resources. Now actually, I will mention it during the live stream, the developers mentioned that no gear will be locked behind loot boxes. You may have costumes, nameplates and emotes that are in loot boxes, but no gear will be locked behind loot boxes at all, so that's absolutely fantastic. Also mentions that gear vendors can be found in each outpost and have a selection of goods that rotate weekly. Now when it mentions each outpost, I've talked about the helicarrier, it looks like we maybe have something called the ant hill as well. That was featured within the trailer, and then it tells you to check back regularly to inspect an ever-changing inventory. Within this particular vendor then, it looks like there's some pretty interesting fixes we haven't seen yet. So you can see this one is called Gamma Bullets. With this, critical range attacks will deal gamma damage, contaminating targets with weaponized gamma radiation. The fact it says contaminating really does lead me to believe it will work like a dot, and it will effectively work like poison on them. This next piece of gear that was shown within this store sounds really nice for a tank style character. It's reactive explosion, and with this you have a chance when you're taking damage to trigger a damage explosion yourself, so that could be a lot of fun for tank style characters. Final piece of gear from the gear vendor before we actually look at the faction vendor. This one here, it says Faultless Spark, so with this is a chance that critical hits boost the charge of all heroic meters, so that sounds like it's actually a team wide effect, and fingers crossed we do get to see effects like that. So if someone wants to play a support style character and support their teammates, they're able to do that. But let's have a look at the faction vendor now. So this here then is the faction vendor. Currently it looks like they are level 2, you can see that up the top left there, and we've been told that you can do faction missions to actually upgrade them, and it looks like you'll need to be certain ranks to unlock or potentially equip certain pieces of gear. Now this one here, it's got really interesting effects for the middle one. It's Terrigen Augments, and with this light combo finishers will conjure a mist of Terrigen. I'm not quite sure what that will do, but it does sound pretty interesting anyway. So that's all that information we found out in regards to gear. I didn't realise how much it actually was until I started to put this video together. I didn't realise it would be as long as this either, so if you've made it to the end, congratulations and thanks for sticking with me. Now do let me know what you think of the gear we've shown off in the comments below. Myself, I'm not entirely sold just yet, and I would need to see details of the artifacts and a few more affixes before I get a bit more hyped in regards to the gear and the theory crafting options that will be available. But once again, do let me know what you think in the comments below. But thanks for tuning in for this. Hope it's been insightful as always. Take care, stay safe, and I'll see you all again soon.